Jeffrey Epstein was the man that had the names, the tapes, and a private island. He knew the kind of secrets that could topple nations. A former president, Bill Clinton. A future president, Donald Trump. A royal, Prince Andrew, and a tech king, Bill Gates. And they all called him a friend. Then he dies in federal custody, with broken cameras, missing footage, and a fractured neck bone more common in murder than suicide. Who silenced Jeffrey Epstein? And what were they so desperate to keep buried? Welcome back to Criminally Human, where the most dangerous secrets are buried in plain sight, and the people who know them tend to vanish. Jeffrey Epstein was born in Brooklyn in 1953, from a modest Jewish family. A brilliant mind obsessed with math, he landed a teaching job at Manhattan's elite Dalton School, despite never finishing college. But charm and connections opened doors no diploma could. One key figure. Alan Greenberg, CEO of Bear Stearns. With a nod from power, Epstein was thrust onto Wall Street, and from there his dark empire began to take shape. By the 1980s, Epstein had left Bear Stearns and claimed to be a financial advisor to billionaires. But no one could ever explain how he made his money. He had no official hedge fund, no public clients, and very few actual records. Rumors swirled that he was a blackmailer, using hidden cameras and teenage children to entrap powerful men. To this day, his finances remain a mystery. In the early 1990s, Epstein began dating Ghislaine Maxwell, the British socialite and daughter of media mogul Robert Maxwell, who plunged to his death from his yacht under shadowy circumstances. Maxwell wasn't just Epstein's girlfriend. She was his partner, his recruiter, and eventually his co-conspirator. According to survivors, Ghislaine would lure young girls in with promises of modeling gigs, internships, or elite connections, only to hand them over to Epstein. In 2005, the family of a 14-year-old girl in Florida reported that Jeffrey Epstein had molested her during a so-called massage at his Palm Beach mansion. When police began investigating, what they uncovered was horrifying. Dozens of underage girls, a rotating schedule of abuse, and detailed logs showing names, dates, and even payments. But despite the overwhelming evidence, Epstein wasn't charged with sex trafficking. Because in 2008, he struck a secretive plea deal with U.S. Attorney Alexander Acosta. Under the terms of that deal, Epstein would plead guilty to 2 lesser charges: soliciting prostitution, including one case involving a minor. He served just 13 months in a Florida county jail, where he was granted work release 6 days a week, allowed to leave during the day and return only to sleep. The deal also granted immunity to all co-conspirators, including Ghislaine Maxwell. Most shocking of all, the victims weren't even notified until the deal was finalized, a direct violation of federal law. It allowed Epstein to return to his mansion, his private jet, and the elite social circles that had protected him all along. He kept moving freely, hosted parties, flew celebrities on his jet, and rubbed elbows with world leaders. Many of the girls Epstein targeted came from vulnerable backgrounds: poverty, instability, or abuse. Some were as young as 13. Most were lured in under the promise of quick cash for giving massages, but what they walked into was something much darker. Inside his mansion, Epstein followed a chilling routine. The girls were led to an upstairs room, asked to undress, and told to give a massage that quickly turned sexual. Some survivors said they were assaulted under the gaze of framed photos of other young girls lining the walls. Then, as if it were normal, they were handed cash and told to bring a friend next time. Women like Virginia Giuffre, Courtney Wild, and Sarah Ransom would later testify that Epstein ran a machine, one designed to exploit and silence. Ghislaine Maxwell wasn't just nearby. She was actively involved, recruiting, coordinating, and at times participating. This wasn't just abuse. It was an organized system of control. But in 2019, investigative reporting, especially by Julie K. Brown of the Miami Herald, blew the case wide open again. He was arrested at the airport when his private jet landed and placed in federal custody at MCC Manhattan. He was charged with sex trafficking and conspiracy to commit sex trafficking. Agents searched his $77 million Manhattan townhouse and found dozens of nude photos of underage children, cash, diamonds, passports, and a fake Saudi passport with Epstein's photo and a different name. This wasn't evidence, it was insurance. Who, or what, was Epstein protecting? Prosecutors called him a flight risk, a billionaire with private jets, foreign passports, and no reason to stick around. They warned he was dangerous, that he had the means to vanish, and the power to silence. The judge agreed, so bail was denied. And here is when the story stops making sense. And the cover-up, some say, began. On July 23, 2019, just weeks into custody, Epstein was found in his cell semi-conscious with marks around his neck. At first, it was labeled a suicide attempt, but Epstein claimed he was attacked by his cellmate, a former cop awaiting trial for multiple murders. Epstein was placed on suicide watch, temporarily. Just 6 days later, officials downgraded him to psychological observation status. He was taken off suicide watch and left alone in a cell without a roommate. On August 10, 2019, Jeffrey Epstein was found dead in his cell, ruled a suicide. But guards fell asleep, cameras failed, footage disappeared. His cellmate was removed, and his autopsy showed unusual neck injuries more common in strangulation. What really happened that morning? Jeffrey Epstein's death raises more questions than answers. Some investigators and whistleblowers believe Epstein wasn't just a predator. He was a blackmail broker. The theory goes like this. Elite men were invited to Epstein's mansions or private island, where underage children were provided. Hidden cameras secretly recorded compromising moments. These recordings were then allegedly used to control or manipulate powerful individuals. Some speculate that intelligence agencies like the CIA, Israeli Mossad, and British intelligence were involved or aware, using the operation as leverage in global espionage and power plays. Because when you have video of a billionaire with a child, you don't need cash. You own him. When you control a man's darkest secret, you control everything. And maybe that's why he never got to testify. He had the names, the videos, the leverage. Then he died in a cell where the cameras didn't work all of a sudden, and the guards that should have protected him strangely were asleep. Why was his cellmate moved the night before? None of this sounds right. You still think it was just suicide? Tell me, who wanted Jeffrey Epstein dead the most? Who all is on that list that's been sealed? Thank you for tuning in to Criminally Human, where behind every headline is a person, a story, and a tragedy that didn't have to happen. Please like and subscribe. But most of all, stay human.